Hey ladies! Give everybody a second to ping and know what's happening here. Good morning, good morning. I actually feel like I'm relatively on time, which is nice. Just like everyone else, I have all the million children at home. Oh, I think there's peoples. Oh, there we go. It must be coming on. Good morning, ladies. Hi, Jody. Oh, how is everyone this morning? Anything exciting happening for anyone? Anybody doing fun stuff? Anything? Nothing? Any crafts with their kids? Any exciting things that they can do from home? I think we're all starting to need new ideas. Alrighty. Thanks, Joe. Alright. I don't know. Jody's staying home, aren't we all? Alright. We're gonna go ahead and I don't know how to tell. Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody who wants to be on. Okay, I think it's going now. Okay, good morning, guys. I was just asking everybody what everybody was up to, if there's anything exciting going on in their homes that they want to share, good ideas for us to do here while we wait for some people to ping on and come on and see what's going on. Anything? Anything, Heather? Are you doing anything exciting with your children? Tomorrow is Jody Cherry's birthday. Anybody watching this? Happy birthday tomorrow, Jody Cherry. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get into it. I don't know. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and get going here. Home improvement class. My whole life is a home improvement class. I'm trying to, I don't know. I'm trying to not let them be on like the TV and their tablets all day long, but I don't know. We also need sanity. So, what was I just going to say? Oh, I'm going to start, I'm going to try recording here in my living room. My dining room, I think, makes the light makes like a buzzing noise. And when it, like when I was scrolling through and you know how the video automatically plays back, I could hear like the buzzing in the background last week. So I was hoping that, I was thinking that it was my light. And so anyways, I thought I'd try doing it in here. If not, I'll go back to the kitchen table next week. So good morning, ladies. We are in Esther Chapter 1. And we are going to get going in here. So previously I've been reading through the whole chapter and then discussing it. But I think we're going to just start going, you know, section by section and discussing it as we read as a time-saving measure. Just know that we're going to be going chapter to chapter. There's a couple weeks that we'll put 2 chapters together so that we can be done by the end of May. But I will let you know those weeks. It will not be next week. So if anyone wants to read their the chapter that we're going to be reading before study on Wednesday, feel free to do so. And Esther is absolutely amazing. And I feel like, you know, one of the biggest verses or you know things that we remember out of Esther is when they talk about her being in the world and being in this moment for such a time as this. And I feel like can that ring any truer for us right now, that we are all in this for such a time as this? We were meant to be here today for this time, for this purpose, and just to let God use that in any way he wants to. So, you know, on Sunday, Pastor Dave, when he put up the sermon, for Sunday's service, he had quoted, you know, the Esther, such a time as this. And I was like, yeah, I know, man. It's good stuff. So if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and dive in and get moving into Esther chapter 1. And like I said, we'll talk about some different stuff as we go through it. And if you guys have any like points or anything that stands out to you or that you want to talk about, or questions for other people or anything, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'll try to read them as I can. Sometimes it like scrolls faster than I can see what's going on. And I'm sorry about that. I try to address stuff, but then when I look back at things, I see that I missed stuff, and I'm sorry for that. This is supposed to be a community thing, so please add in any points of wisdom or anything that you have on whatever. We're starting with Esther chapter 1. All right, I'll read the first section here. We'll read verses 1 through 3 to start, and then we'll talk about some logistics of the time. Some like, I'll show you some maps and things like that. So, Esther chapter 1. This is what happened. Oh, hey, you know what, guys? I'm going to pray before we start so that I told it. Yeah. Lord, thank you so much for these ladies being on here with me, Lord. And I just pray that you open our hearts to hear and see what you want us to hear and see, Lord. I just pray against distractions and just focus and clarity for each of us to each other, and love and compassion and all those things, Father. And let this be a way to connect with one another and with you in a kind of crazy time. In your name, amen. Chapter 1. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who'd ruled over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. And in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media and the princes and the nobles of the provinces were present. So I just wanted to show you guys, I'm trying to read and look at different things, and my stepdad brought me over a whole 3-ring binder of different, just like study material in different chapters. So this one is on the book of Esther. It is so good, and it's from the Rose books, Bibles and charts. These are amazing. If anybody ever feels like they want to grab something where they can like research more about different aspects of the Bible and biblical times, these books are amazing. The very first one, the volume 1, is my favorite, but this is the one with the Esther in it, but it's the same thing. This Esther is the same as the Esther that's in here. So it has a lot of stuff, but I wanted to show you guys, here's a good picture about the time in the province, or, you know, the area, the whole province that Xerxes rules over. So if you guys can see this, I don't know if it's going to be backwards. I can't like tell. So here's the map. All the dark green is where the Persian Empire was. So, you know, we're over here into the Asian, let me make sure, you know, like into Asia and down into India. And then it goes all the way over and it ends right here around Greece. So that's this huge Persian Empire. And if you remember from anybody took like a ancient history or world history, you know, the Persian Empire was a big deal. So, and then here you get into like where Greece was going, and that's kind of significant as we go on to the next part here. But so they're in the city of Susa. Susa is right here, kind of in the middle, and it's kind of close. I don't know if you guys can see. It won't like. Anyways, so it's kind of right there in the middle. It's kind of near Babylon, more near the Persian Gulf. Anyways, so that's a little visual of what's going on. And I also wanted to tell you about the time that he's going on. So this also references some things, and I thought it was just really informational. When the Persian Empire was at its height, major cultural developments were taking place throughout the world. Around the same time that Esther lived in Persia, Confucius lived in China, Buddha lived in India, and Socrates lived in Greece. And I just found that, I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting to give you more of a worldview of what was going on in the whole world during this time of Xerxes being the, the ruler, and of Esther coming in to be queen. So let's move on to, so he has all his military leaders there. It's in the 3rd year of his reign, and we're going to move on to verse 4. For a full 180 days he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. When the days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed gardens of the king's palace for all the people, from the least to the greatest, who were in the citadel of Susa. We'll stop right there for a second. So he has this big to-do for 180 days. And what history actually believes that they may have been doing is, so you know how on this map I told you, upside down. So here's Greece over here in this dark green color. We'll see that he kind of exiles as queen, and then before Esther becomes even a thing on the radar, his armies try to conquer Greece and they lose, which is kind of significant in history in general, because it changes the whole dynamics of what could have been. We could have Greek rule versus a Persian rule, and it's a whole kind of deal. But this party that they're having for this 180 days, he thinks that it's with all the generals and everything to discuss what they're going to do and how they're going to conquer Greece. And then he has a 7-day banquet, which is, more of the food and the whatnot. So, and then the citadel of Susa, that is just the, it's not the whole town of Susa. It's just like the palace that's in Susa. So all the least to the greatest were able to come to this feast, but only within the actual castle walls, or so not the entire city of Susa was welcome. The garden had hanging, we're going to pick back up in verse 6, chapter 1, verse 6 of Esther. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen, fastened with cords of white linen and purple material to silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant, in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink his own way, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. So he's rich and he's showing off his splendor, and this is significant because his dad started building this kingdom, or this castle, or it's not castle, but I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but like a castle. His dad started building it, and he ended up finishing it, and so it's telling us, all the things that he did and all the splendor he had and how much money he had that he could do all these things, basically building off of what his dad did. And, everybody was drinking, partying, and he let everybody kind of drink how they wanted to drink and do how they wanted to do. Okay, and then we move into verse 9, I'm sorry. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Mahuman, Bezetha, Horbana, Bagitha, Abagatha, Zethar, and Carcass, to bring before him Queen Vashti wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. Verse 12, but when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. So, of course, it's you're not allowed to say no to the king. Palace is the word I'm looking for. His palace. So she can't say no to him. This is a big deal. I didn't read it in these things, but I think we did an Esther study way back. I don't know, a while ago, maybe from Beth Moore, and she spoke about how there's a possibility that he was actually requesting her to come naked with only a crown, and of course, that is a no-go. She's like, that would have been, if that were the case, I mean, that would have caused great shame for her and all kinds of things. So her saying no, we don't know why she says no. It doesn't say why she says no, but I feel like, to be honest, any woman that can identify with her saying, no, you're drunk, you've been drunk for 180 days plus the 187 days, I'm not, no, we're busy over here, we're not doing this. And I don't think anybody faults her for saying, we're not parading me around in front of all of these men as if I was a prize to be won, even though in the time she kind of was. So she says, that's a no-go, that's not happening. So we move on to verse 13. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king. Okay, guys, bear with me as I read this. Karshena, Sethar, Admartha, Tarshish, Mers, Marsena, and Mehumican, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media who had special access to the king and were the highest in command. So this is pretty common that this is how it worked. He had his council, his own private council, and he would, when he had to make big decisions, he would talk with his people, and those are his people. So we move on to verse 15. According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? He asked. She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her. So they're drunk, angry, and irritated that this woman says no, and they're egging each other. What are we going to do about it? Well, she said no. What are you going to do? Verse 16. Then Menucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, and not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the people of all the province is of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commands Vashti to be brought before him, and she would not come. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree and let it be written into the laws of the Persian and Mede people, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all the vast realm, all the women will respect their husbands, from the least to the greatest. We'll just finish. Verse 21, the king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province, in its own script, and to each people in its own language, proclaiming in each people's tongue that every man should be the ruler of his own household. In some places it talks about that meaning that his language was the head language spoken within that house, because he was the head of the household, which I'm all about my husband being the head of my household, but he ain't calling me to parade naked in front of a bunch of people with a crown on. So Xerxes is a little bit of a hothead, as you guys can see from here. He enjoys the good life. He enjoys partying. He enjoys having fun. He kind of reminds me of a whiny person that gets everything that they want, and so you can't really ever tell them no. That kind of tyrant type king. So he's not, first of all, he's not used to anybody saying no anyways, let alone the queen to him. And this makes him angry. And then all the men are scared that if they know that the queen can say no to the king, then can't any woman say no to their husband? And what like breaks my heart is that it says something about despise, when it says despise. Oh yeah, in verse 17, for the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands. And I just think, how terrible must you be as a person for your wife to despise you if they're not ordered not to? And I just, as a woman to a woman, I'm going to be honest, it breaks my heart to think of what these women were living in and what they had to deal with. And if it wasn't commanded to not despise your husbands, that they would. And that the men were so fearful that they felt like they had to make a royal edict to take a queen down in order just to make, because they were so scared that the women could rise up and turn against him. And I also just want to, just hold that in your heart, women. We have not power like in the earthly sense, but power in a godly sense. And we matter, and what we do matters, and how we act matters. And that can be scary for people who don't love Jesus. I don't know. That's just a thought. That's a side note, I guess. So, in Esther, hold on, you guys. I literally have not had a cup of coffee yet. So that's probably why I can't read. I'm not going to lie. I put on my glasses to read this yesterday because I feel like my eyes are just getting worse. And I'm supposed to wear glasses all the time. And, but they're like far away glasses. I don't know. They're ones for far away. I somewhere I have a pair of bifocals for reading too, but those were not it. And so it wasn't helping. But I feel like I think I need like a pair of readers. Oh my gosh, that's happening. Okay. I want to talk a little bit. If anybody has anything they want to say about chapter 1, feel free to chime in and ask a question. I probably can try to look for an answer or any of those things, or we can chime in with each other. But I want to do a little bit of an overview in the general sense about the book of Esther. I mean, it's pretty commonplace that you know that, I know, Kristen, it's like, come on, classes. Esther, there's no actual mention of God at all in Esther, right? So, what it is a beautifully written story, just like anything else in our lives. When you look back and you in retrospect, when you're looking atop your whole life, you can look back and see where God's hand was in everything. But you may not have known it. You may not have recognized God. You may not have, known that God was doing certain things in your life, but we know now in retrospect that that's what it was. And this whole story is beautifully written. Each chapter and each thing has a counterweight, a counterbalance. Just like in Ruth, we start out with this falling of, the queen, and we end up with the new queen, and it's a destruction and saving, and everything kind of counterbalances until we get to the middle of the story. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful how it's written. And because it's so beautiful, and it's one of those things where it's so evident that God did these things, we don't even have to say it, because you can't deny the fact that God's hands were in all of this. Also, I want to note, we haven't even got to the parts with Esther and Mordecai and all of those things. This is just the first chapter talking about the king and the previous queen. So when we get there, Esther and Mordecai are not, we just got done doing Ruth. Esther ain't Ruth. I'm here to tell you, she isn't Naomi. She's not, she doesn't do everything right. She marries against what the law says she can marry. This time is right before, they think right before Ezra comes back and does his thing. But so you know how in Daniel, in the Daniel times and all that stuff, Nebuchadnezzar takes the Israelites and takes them over, and they're dispatched and they're away, and they're not in their home anymore, and they're all over the Persian Empire. Well, when Cyrus comes into power, because he's a political guy and wants everybody to like him, and he doesn't know it, but he's being an instrument of God, he gets to allow all the people that were taken by Nebuchadnezzar and captive to return. They're still under the Persian rule, but they're allowed to return to their homes and live their lives. So he looks like a hero, and everybody loves him because he's letting the people to letting the people go home. And when all that happened, that was about, I think, like 50, 70 years before Esther happens. But some people chose to not go back to Israel and Judah and rebuild their lives. They had been living their lives forever, in Persia and all these places, and Susa, and I can't remember I don't know if Esther's actually in Susa or if she's in a different town, but they built their lives where they are, and they don't want to go back. They just want to stay there. So that's why there's still, even though the people were allowed to go back, some chose to stay. And Esther and her family, they chose to stay. And there's just, hold on, I don't know where I read about, like, kind of her faults as a person. While she loves God, and it's evident from, while it's never said, but it's evident from reading that she has an understanding of Jewish law and, the Jewish customs and all of those things. She actually isn't the best Jewish person. She kind of isn't the stand-up, model of what a Jewish girl should be. Oh, I have a baby coming. Sorry, guys.
Mom,
yes, I'm doing Bible study.
Get this tool.
You gotta go ask Liliana.
No, I like to clip it because it's not. I can't do it.
Oh, to press it down? Okay, you're gonna have to go ask Liliana, okay? Mommy's doing something, okay? Thank you, I love you. Esther isn't the model citizen for who should become queen and save the Jewish people, which, God would have saved them anyways because Jesus was coming. This was all part of the plan. All of these things, he doesn't want terrible things to happen, but he can take them because God can take all things and use them for the good of those who love him. And this is all part of the story, and she's part of the story of saving the people, the Jewish people. But if he had a perfect Jewish girl, she probably would have refused to marry the king, or would have not been how she was in the story. And we'll get there because that's later on. But God, and I just wanted to say this: God can take any of us, even in our garbage, in our trash, and the nastiness and the imperfection. We're trying pretty hard and we're doing what we can, and he knows that we love him, and he knows that we're trying to be obedient. We should always try to be better. We should always try to escalate to the next spot, to be better and more and closer to him. But he can take all the things and use them to save the people. The ugliest parts of my story and the most terrible parts are what God uses to reach people for him, or to it's my fuel for my fire to get people towards him. And so I just want to encourage you, as we read on, we'll read more of that, but she wasn't a Ruth and Naomi. She was not. So it's encouraging, I don't know, as a person who's not maybe perfect or the best all the time, that he can take us and use us however he chooses for good and big things. And I think as we get into this story a little bit more, I just think that this is such a perfect book to be reading right now and to use for what's going on, because this is a crazy time for her. This ends up being nutso for Esther. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to keep going, but I can't. We're just doing chapter 1. I just want to encourage you guys that even when things look grim, even when things are terrible, and all those things, he can take any of us and use it to glorify him if we just let him, if we just say yes and do it. Yeah, we'll get into other stuff later. I want to talk about a whole bunch of things, but it doesn't make as much sense until we get into, we don't even met Esther in the story yet. Oh, Rachel, I know. That's okay. You can go back and watch anything if you want to, or whatever. It doesn't, I mean, it's all right. Anybody have any questions about Esther? I know, Rach. I just feel like I do have 4 kids at home and 2 dogs, and I know it may seem like it's quiet, but that's because I shoved them all upstairs. And I'm like, you guys cannot, you got to give Mom 20 minutes, half hour. Oh, it's been a half hour. I'm doing good. I'm trying to keep us to 30 minutes. Or give or take, 35. I'm like, you guys can be up there for 30 to 35 minutes and shh. Play, hang out. Liliana can handle it for a minute. Anybody have any insights about that first chapter? I don't know. There's some, if we could dive into some touchy subjects within that first chapter about, women and how women are treated and things like that. But I'm not going to go there. But I just pray that you ask God to speak to you through that about having compassion from woman to woman. I just think we think that the queen or anyone in high power has it all together, right? And their lives are good and golden and perfect, and we all dream of being the princess. Or it may not be a princess, it may be more of a right now version of a princess, but we all dream of being at the top and being cared for and doing all these things, but in reality you don't know what their life is behind this, behind the screen. And we don't know what other women are going through day to day. We don't know why they're making the choices they're making. And I just encourage you to have compassion for other women versus judgment, especially in this time right now. It's so hard and it's so crazy. There is, we all need to be obedient citizens. I know that the Bible calls us to be good citizens. That's part of being a good Christian, and to be obedient to the law and those kind of things. That doesn't mean we don't have opinions and things like that, but we try our best to be law-abiding citizens. I know you're a princess, Jody. Just don't judge each other too harshly and give each other some credit, because we don't know what person to person is going through, or house to house is going through, or kid to kid, or anything. And just, in this book, you think the queen, she's got it all together, right? But it just takes one no to the king, and her whole life comes tumbling down. And so just let that reign in the back of your mind about compassion. You don't know what's going on for other people, and things like that. So I'm sorry, I'm going to read some of these comments for a second and see if anybody makes it hard ones. I completely agree, Rachel. 100%. I absolutely know for a fact that God didn't want the terrible things that I've done or happened or to me and from me, and all the things. I know he didn't want them to happen. However, I know for a fact that he has taken those, and because I love him and he loves me, he turns those into fuel for my fire, and makes me a better mom and a better wife and a better Christian and a better, not that those things are all separate. I think they're kind of all together. All the things that have happened have created compassion in me and understanding and love. And, oh, look at my new shirt. This is my new favorite. Love them anyway. It's my favorite. I'd been wanting it forever, but I didn't want to spend the money. And then it was on their daily deals a couple weeks before all this happened. And this is my new favorite shirt. You just gotta love people, because you just don't know. But God can take all those bad and terrible things, and if you let him, he'll take them and turn them into fuel. And I think anybody who's a person has been through stuff. There's no prize for the worst life, I promise you. Anybody, just because you think that they look like they have it all together, doesn't mean that they didn't have a life that was definitely not all together at some point. And I think it's absolutely true for, I want to say, just about everyone, because that's why we need Jesus, because our lives are imperfect and we're imperfect and we've sinned and we've been part of sin and we've been around sin and we're sinful people, and he wants to be with us, or God wants to be with us, and we can't do that without Jesus. So whatever. So just anyways, with that being said, just remember that it's not just you. You're not the only one that had a hard life, or you're not the worst sinner. You're not the worst. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like I am. Other people have too, and they have the same compassion. And I always assume that my life was pretty hard growing up. I was loved. I was very loved by my parents, but my dad was a drug addict. He was a cross-dressing drug addict. It's not a secret. So I guess I'll just say it. And there was a lot of things that happened. There was violence, and not towards, well, I mean, there was just a lot of stuff. It was a hard life growing up, and it turned into a hard younger years and all those things. So everybody has their own story, but he has taken that to give me compassion and love towards so many people, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that, you know, because it could have been we all would have had something. We all would have had something hard, and I'm just glad that he loves me enough to take it and turn it around for him. So, for real, Leah, we are always a mess. Listen. Yes, we are always a mess. Yes. A good, and her thing says, a good circumstance doesn't equal a content. It went away. It's not, you know, just because all of our circumstances are good doesn't mean our heart should be content and not want to grow and be better and closer to him, and that we're all kind of a bunch of screw-ups. Front of the line screw-up right here. Yes, I always tell your kids, you think you have it bad, but you can always find someone whose life has had it harder. No pity parties, because... Absolutely, Rachel. I think that they always can have something, but I also would caution that I'm a big no pity party person. Listen, Thomas, I tell that to Thomas, like, we ain't having no pity parties over here. Listen, our God loves us too much to sit and be, you know, and situations are hard and things are terrible sometimes, and you just got to try to pick yourself up. But also be careful. I'm careful too, because I get like that really bad, probably mostly with Liliana. She's 12, and you know, her time is coming, and it's gonna be here any minute. I can feel it. I'm kind of hoping it happens during quarantine so we can deal with it, but I can feel her emotions stirring, and I have to constantly be like, calm down, it is not that bad. But then there's certain points when I have to, you know, go to her and say, you know what, just because it's not as bad as something else or the next thing, you have valid feelings. The way you feel isn't invaluable, because I was made to feel sometimes like that. How I felt about things growing up was not how I should feel, but now as an adult, I'm having to like regress from that and go, no, that was a pretty terrible situation. I should have been upset. That's okay. And so we want to make sure that I don't do that to my kids too, where I so often say, suck it up, buttercup, that they start like just, you know, building these walls, and they can't, you know, then portray their feelings. I used to be very embarrassed and ashamed. It does. I mean, if we let God just transform our situations, he can. And here's what I've learned too. Every time I feel like I don't want to say something, or maybe this isn't the most appropriate time to say something, or I'm scared or nervous of what people will think about me when I say something, I know it's the enemy. Like when those feelings of doubt and scared and fear, I know without a doubt it is the enemy twisting what he knows about me, and because he knows I'm a people pleaser, and he knows I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, and he knows all those things about me. He will take that and say, you better not say anything because you might make them feel uncomfortable. Well, but then I do say something, and it turns out that somebody needed to hear it. Someone needed to identify with it. Someone needed to know, oh, you weren't the only one that had a daddy that dressed like a mom? Oh, cool. You weren't alone. You know, I just feel like there's just so... there's so much that Satan wants to use and stop us from talking about, that God absolutely wants to take and turn into part of his story and to draw people closer to him. I think one of the biggest things that he wants to do is make us, you know, the enemy wants to think that we're polarized, that we're secluded, that no one feels the way we feel, and we're an idiot for saying that we feel a certain way. And I just encourage you to combat against that. Sarah started, yes, amen, we can't normalize what... True that, Sarah. I'm glad you're here, Sarah. I have to take time to remember. Okay. Yeah. I can't see the whole comment. I don't know. Women to women, And girl to girl, I mean, I have 4 girls. I feel like my whole life is women to women. Except for Thomas, he's obviously not a woman. But we just have to have compassion for each other and know that it's okay. It's okay. Like God. And here's another thing that I've learned over the years, that it's not my responsibility to make somebody love Jesus. It's just my responsibility to love them towards him. Like, I can't make somebody fall in love with Jesus. I can't make somebody like me. I can't make... Those things are completely and totally out of my control, and I have to let those things go. But I can do my very, very, very best to love people and be compassionate and understanding, and help them look at their lives and see where we can see God's hand, like in Esther, where we can see God's hand interweaving in all these things when they thought their lives was, I have some terrible situations, but I can also see where God had his hand in every single step of it to get me to where I am right now and to bring me closer to him. And we can make a choice on whether or not, we want to see that or we don't. We can either take our terrible situations and wallow in them and live in them, and that's who we are, and it becomes part of our identity, and in reality it's just a situation that happened, and it's not who we are. Who we are children of Christ. Who we are loved and cared for beings that were made by the very breath of God, by breathing his very breath into Adam. And that's who we are. And you can choose to either to live there, or you can live in who we were and what happened in the past. But that's all a choice that we make. And I think that when you choose to wake up and believe that you have purpose, that you're here for a purpose, and that purpose has everything to do with loving God and letting him love you back, it can really take your perspective and change it. So, that really got off topic. I'm sorry. Does anyone else have anything else? Or does anybody have prayer requests for anything? Again, like I said, if it's something that you would like a prayer request for, but you don't want to put it on the internet, that's fine. You can always message me privately. I would love absolutely, with everything that I am, to pray for you. I pretty much have nothing to do these days, so nothing would make me happier to do that. And if you don't mind, you can let me know if you would like me to pass it on to just 1 or 2 people that can also pray for you, that I know would love to do that. We often talk about emotion. Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna see if I can read more of this. Okay. Yes, Julia. Every single day I feel like I'm saying that to Liliana. Every single day. You have a choice on how you respond. You are absolutely allowed to be angry. You are absolutely allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be offended if that's who you want to be. If you want to, as if everybody's doing everything to you, you have every right in the world to do that. But you don't have the right to act mean and nasty to me or Daddy or your sisters. And Liliana's she's a really good kid. I'm not trying to pick on her or anything, but I feel like it's a regular conversation, because I think it's actually a regular conversation that I have to have with myself. Lyndon, you are angry, but you have a choice on what you do with your anger. You can be compassionate or kind, or you can live in anger. That's like a message I have to constantly say in my own brain, because I'm a human too, and I'm pretty hard to live with, I think, because the world's not black and white, and not everything is black and white, but I have a tendency to think black and white, which is really hard to live in a gray world and think black and white, because most of the time it's not. It's very, very gray. And so sometimes I'm a little bit tough. You can ask Jody. I'm a little bit tough to be a best friend with too. I don't mean to be. I just love you guys so much. I don't want to lie to you. All right. I am going to close us out in prayer. There's so many other things that I want to talk about in Esther, but I just feel like I can't make this 100 years long, and that we are only on chapter 1, and I gotta let it just be chapter 1. The motto in my house, Heather, is you can do hard things. That's.
I'm gonna go inside because he's scaring the bunnies away that I saw.
Oh yeah, he's barking at those bunnies. Oh, everybody, it's going to chaos here. Anyways, I have a sign that I got, one of those things where you put the what are those, like at the restaurant with the signs and you can put the things in them. Anyways, and it says you can do hard things. And every single day I have to tell my kids. And Leanna's like, but I'm so mad. But guess what, Leanna, you can do hard things. And they want to beat me up for it, I swear. And one day they're going to beat me up with that sign that says you can do hard things. Oh my gosh, it's going to chaos. I'm going to close with some prayer. Lord, thank you so much. I appreciate this day and these ladies just hanging out with me and chatting. And I really want to do my best with everything that I am to draw these people, or you guys, the women and just the people in my realm of voice closer to you, and then myself too, Lord. I'm so thankful for what you're doing in my own heart as I'm studying through and getting prepared to kind of hang out with these ladies on Wednesdays. I just pray that you keep us coming back and hungry for more, Lord. If we let you speak to us, you will take your words and just, transform them off the page into our heart and how we should be and what we should be doing and how we can respond in this situation, Lord, and all the things that are going on. It's so hard and it's so crazy. And it's a time where we don't even know how to think or what's next, or it's pretty uncertain. And I just think that you're going to use the book of Esther to speak right into our hearts about how certain we can be that you are absolutely in control. I pray over each of these ladies' hearts and mine, and just bring us back next week in your name. Amen. All right, ladies. I tell Chloe. I know, Heather. She is so cute, that little peanut. You think that I would say stay upstairs and they would, but that's a joke. Now they want candy, and I guess they're probably going to want lunch. Oh no, it's only 10:15. All right, guys. I love you guys. Tomorrow is Jody Cherry's birthday. Everybody better, I think everyone should send her a video message of a happy birthday song. I think that she won't be overwhelmed with that. Okay. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.